Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Bobby Hams here with my review of Homeland's final season, episode 6. We start off with Carrie washing up, while the news provides some exposition on President Warner's death and plans for his funeral. We then see Max is still alive and is being marched across the mountains at gunpoint by the Taliban fighter, who then zip ties Max's hands together while he goes relieves himself. Max sees a drone overhead and attempts to make a run for it, but receives a bullet in the back for his efforts. Back at the White House, the new president addresses the U.S. and shares with the chief of staff some concerns he has over circulating rumors that he had Warner's helicopter shot down. The suggestion infuriates him and he wants to take action, if not on the rumor mill itself, then in Kabul, but the CIA satellite uplink is currently down. Saul tells Carrie that Max is presumed to still be alive because his body wasn't found at either crash site, and General Owens reminds her that it's been 12 hours and the search area is only widening, but drones are in the air looking for him. When she inquires about the ground effort, General Owens tells her that his troops had to be pulled back to protect possible other targets, such as the embassy, the other bases, including where they are. He can't spare the manpower. Carrie starts a guilt trip, blaming herself for sending Max in there in the first place. Saul replies by saying, "We both did." Other CIA agent lady tries to tell the station chief that the tech guys finally cleaned up the audio between Carrie and Gromov from the fountain, but he doesn't have time right now to listen. He'll get to her later. Carrie does her Carrie thing and barges into the server room, asking Lonnie for an update on Max. He tells her everything is quiet on the home front. She requests a copy of the keywords that the station is scanning for, and then is unsatisfied with the list that she's given because she says the Taliban knows how to avoid using those words. An FBI team shows up at the station and the agent in charge considers the station to be a crime scene, theorizing that someone in there may have told the Taliban where to stand with an RPG in order to bring down Warner's helicopter. She requests to see all communications in and out of the building over the last 72 hours and to set up interviews with personnel. Carrie hears the entire conversation. When the station chief instructs that an RTB, or return to base order, be sent out to agents in the field, Carrie decides to leave via the kitchen like she's done so in previous episodes. Meanwhile, Saul gets news that Ghulam insists on speaking with him in person. We then go to Haqqani, who's hiding out in an apartment, and he's watching the military round up Taliban members on the streets below. The Taliban are being taken to a football stadium, with no food or water being provided. Haqqani apologizes for bringing troubles to the man's home, but the man is happy to serve Haqqani as a weapon because he believes Haqqani is responsible for killing 2 presidents at once. Haqqani sternly tells the man that he wanted a ceasefire. Carrie, on her motorbike, is driving through the city when she stumbles onto one of the military's checkpoints, and in trying to avoid it, turns a corner and comes face to face with a US military armored truck. She eventually finds a building where she can park and hide the bike, the building where Gromov is staying. Inside the apartment, Carrie explicitly says to Gromov that this isn't the beginning of any arrangement and asks him for a favor. Apparently she's earned that much. She wants Gromov to help her find Max because she thinks the Taliban have him, but US assets in the Korangal area are almost non-existent. Gromov would love to help her, but the US has that area under blanket surveillance, and he's worried his contact will get a Hellfire missile if he pops his head up. He asks Carrie if she can disable the surveillance just long enough to make a phone call. Carrie is incredulous and declines to do so. Well then, Gromov can't help. Carrie voices her concern that there are American troops on the ground and she can't give Gromov and the Taliban a free pass in a hot zone where 2 presidents were just killed. Gromov says he trusts Carrie to protect his sources, and Carrie tells him to pull the reins on that whole trust thing. Carrie protests again, saying that Gromov is an enemy officer and he's asking her to sabotage an American intelligence capability. Gromov shoots back that she came to him for help. He's not asking her to do anything. Carrie is incredibly conflicted, but relents, and sets an appointment for 3 p.m. Gromov will get his 2 minutes at that time. Ghulam, in his meeting with Saul and former General Ryan, thinks that Haqqani is in the US Embassy. Saul tells Ghulam he doesn't know where Haqqani is, which is true, but Ghulam doesn't buy it. In trying to tell a horrific story of Taliban rule, Ghulam is told that no one wants the Taliban back in power, but at the same time, no one wants the kind of lawlessness that took place in the 90s under Ghulam's watch either. Ghulam doesn't appreciate the insinuation that he's just the same as the Taliban, but Saul goes even further and suggests that maybe Ghulam had the presidents killed. Ghulam won't stand for it anymore. They can see themselves out of his office. Meanwhile, Carrie returns to base and is immediately roped into doing an interview with FBI agent Vanessa Kroll. Carrie is asked about what she knew of the president's visit, when she knew it, and why the president wanted to speak with her. It's a very short interview, but Agent Crow reassures Carrie that it's not the last time they'll talk. The station chief listens to the audio from Gromov and Carrie's meeting and is stunned. Carrie's report of the meeting was a complete fabrication, yet they understand that she wants to get back into the agency. If the details of her conversation with Gromov were known, she wouldn't be able to even get a security clearance. Suspicion regarding Carrie spikes dramatically when we learn that Carrie recommended President Warner go to Afghanistan 90 minutes after meeting with Gromov. The station chief wants eyes on Carrie. Going back to the mountains, the Taliban fighter is hiding out in a house in a village where he has Max's sleeping body cuffed to a bedpost. The fighter then takes Max's pack and wristwatch and leaves, bringing the electronics to a local pawnbroker. Haqqani is told that Ghulam has placed a $1 million bounty on his head. Furthermore, if he gives himself up in the next 24 hours, Ghulam will free the Taliban fighters in the soccer stadium, or else they'll be killed. The new president finds out what would likely happen if Ghulam killed the 300 Taliban, an insurgency like none before it that would pit the Taliban against the US and Afghan forces, suicide bombers, kidnappings, beheadings, the whole shebang, and the US doesn't have the troop force to cope with that kind of a scenario. The president wonders if they can just hand over Haqqani to Ghulam. Saul is frustrated. They try to work up a strategy that the president can approach Ghulam with, by bringing up the fact that the country has a new constitution that allows due process even for the Taliban. The president reluctantly agrees, and everyone else seems relieved. However, his phone call with Ghulam doesn't go as the chief of staff thought it would. Ghulam's argument that violence can't be met with due process is compelling enough to make the president agree with Ghulam. Carrie, sitting at her computer, is being watched closely when her alarm goes off. She notices other CIA agent ladies stand up and exposes the tale. She goes back to the server room and manipulates her way into gaining access to Lonnie's computer by first asking for a hard copy of Afghan conversations that span hundreds of pages, and then jamming up the printer. Carrie finds a server rack monitoring the Korangal area and unplugs the router, then creates additional distractions so Lonnie won't go back to his desk or see the red flashing map. Other agent lady tells station chief that Carrie shook her and was out of sight for about 15 minutes. He tells her to document everything. At the White House, the chief of staff explains to Saul and Ryan that Ghulam got the president on his side by stating that killing 300 Taliban will be the first defining moment of his presidency. The president doesn't seem aware that killing those men will be a war crime or that the US has lost control of its Afghanistan foreign policy. The chief of staff is worried that the president will order 100,000 troops back into the country, and Saul laments that 2 days ago they were ending the war. Station chief retrieves Saul from the secure room, stress and concern written all over his face. He catches Saul up on Carrie's additional meetings with Gromov after she told Saul about Gromov's role in leveraging Ghulam. He's going to have to tell the FBI that Carrie has been lying about her relationship with Gromov and may have unwittingly helped him assassinate President Warner. Saul doesn't defend Carrie, he wants to hear the tape. Haqqani is told he has safe passage out of Kabul but decides to turn himself in. If he runs, he will surely look guilty. He plans to surrender to the Americans, who will insist that Ghulam put him on trial and release the men in the stadium, and during said trial, the world will hear him plead for peace. Carrie is on her phone when she gets a surprise visit from Saul, and he wastes no time in asking about her connection to Gromov. Carrie tells Saul the same thing she put on her report. Saul then bluntly informs her that the recording proves that she was lying to the station chief, and now she's lying to him. Carrie is dumbstruck, and Saul apologizes for putting her in a terrible position by bringing her to Afghanistan in the first place. Carrie has to go back to Germany tonight. She asks not to be treated like a child, so Saul gives her the hard truth. She's told Gromov things that she never told Saul, and she must feel obligated to Gromov for saving her life. Carrie can't deny any of Saul's points and reminds him that she's not trying to be evasive. It's just that she's still putting the pieces together because she can't remember everything. And that's the reason, Saul says, she has to go back to the recovery facility. Carrie balks at the idea and brings up Max. Saul just talks Station Chief Mike out of going to the FBI with his information. But Carrie, in her cavalier way, says that he should talk because there's nothing to hide. Saul, yet again, breaks down her predicament to her. The series of events, from her advising President Warner to his death, coupled with her deceptive connection to Gromov, isn't something that Saul believes, but the FBI certainly will. Carrie doesn't care about becoming the focus of an FBI investigation because she wants to rescue Max, and lets slip that she reached out to Gromov again earlier in the morning and found out that Gromov had a lead on Max's whereabouts. Saul can't believe what she just said. Saul essentially tells her that she is Gromov's asset, and she would dangle information out there in the same way to make her asset desperate enough to do whatever it is she wanted them to do. Saul ends the back and forth. The CIA will follow up on the lead, and Carrie will be escorted to a plane in 30 minutes, either willingly or in handcuffs. As Carrie is leaving base, she sees Haqqani walking up to the barriers at the front gate, and Saul takes him into custody. At the airport, without being prompted, Carrie explains where she went to after ditching the other CIA agent lady. The agent lady's dubious of the explanation. Returning to Max, he wakes up and asks for his backpack. He's told that it's gone. The episode ends with Carrie ducking out of the aircraft boarding walkway and getting picked up on the tarmac by none other than Yevgeny Gromov. Like, wow. After this, I really can't feel sorry for Carrie, because even after Saul explicitly laid out what would happen to her as a result of her actions, and then basically offering her a get out of jail free card with that trip back to Germany, she still chose to seek Gromov's assistance. I thought before that she'd beat herself up if something happened to Max, but I don't think that anymore. I think Max really now is just an excuse for her to keep working with Gromov. Gromov's got her on the hook for real now. She is done for in the eyes of the US government. She has become Brody. The difference is that if she's caught in Afghanistan by the CIA or some other US agency, she can't claim that she was an unwitting accomplice. Not after all the stuff that's coming to light. Last thing about Carrie though, I think it'll be very soon that Lonnie or someone else at the station learns of what she did with the router, because routers, switches, etc. They keep a running log of everything that goes on with the unit, any system faults and restarts or errors or whatnot, as well as communication failures with other equipment. So once they see, Lonnie or whoever pulls a log and sees the one port lost its connection on day X at time X for 2 minutes, I think Carrie will be considered an enemy of the state at that point, and she'll be hunted, just like Brody. And the clinic in Germany is expecting her to land. When she doesn't get off that plane, it's going to get backtracked to where she never left Afghanistan. Then the FBI is going to be looking for her, and CIA is going to be looking for her, Saul's going to be looking for her. It's going to be an all-out manhunt for her. She's crossed the Rubicon at this point, and there's no turning back for her, really. I did finally learn that the new president's name is President Hayes, but I'm going to call him President Easy, because he just seems to want the easiest solutions, no thoughts to the consequences. Just as long as they're easy, he'll go with that, whatever's easiest, and makes him look good. Whatever's easy and makes him look good. Last thing, I think that President Easy will force Saul to hand over Haqqani to Ghulam without any preconditions, of course, because that's the easiest thing to do. I predict that Ghulam will kill Haqqani and probably the 300 Taliban, and probably on live television, to make a point. And Haqqani will become a martyr to his followers, right? Haqqani will become a martyr, and so any hope or semblance of peace will get dashed. The insurgency will explode with a new ferocity around the country, and President Easy won't know what else to do except send more US troops back into Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Carrie is going to be on the run with Gromov, and it's all going to be, oh wow. There are so many interesting roads that the story can take now, but we'll see what happens on the next episode of Homeland. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Bobby Hams, signing out.